Hello, hi. So this is my first official video on this channel, and I thought what better first video than a very collective haul. All the books that I'm about to talk about have been collected from about a 3-month period. My candle, I have my blanket, and I have a lot of books in front of me that I can't wait to talk about. So let's get into it. The first book that I picked up was A Study in Drowning by Ava Reid. Ava Reid is an author that I've been wanting to get into a while, so I decided to pick this up because it sounded the most intriguing to me. This book follows the main character Effie as she joins a contest to essentially redesign the manner of one of her favorite authors. And of course, there is another person who joins that contest, and his whole goal in that contest is to prove that the author, Effie's favorite author, is actually a fraud. And that's all I know about the plot, and I really don't want to know any more before going into it. I prefer knowing less about the books that I'm about to read because I find that I just have a better reading experience that way. But based on that description alone, it sounds like it's going to deal with academic rivals. It sounds like there's going to be a little bit of a mystery along with some magical elements, which all three of those sound right up my alley. Another book that I picked up and I actually read in January is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This is easily a 6-star read for me and probably my favorite read of 2024 so far, and it's only February. This book is a romance novel, but it's so much more than the romance. It follows the main character Clementine as she is navigating life after losing her beloved aunt. She also inherits her late aunt's apartment in New York City. And growing up, Clementine has always heard stories from her aunt about how magical the apartment is, but she's never really seen it for herself. Until one day, Clementine gets home from work and walks into the apartment, and she actually walks 7 years in her past. And of course, there's a strange man standing in her kitchen. This book has a lot of discussion around grief, around family, around friends, career, jobs, also the concept of the right person but at the wrong time. I truly love this novel so much. If you're in the mood for something that is both heartwarming and also gut-wrenching at the same time, then I cannot recommend this book more. Because I love The 7-Year Slip so much, I had to pick up The Dead Romantics, which is also by Ashley Poston. I like The Dead Romantics, but I definitely loved The 7-Year Slip more. But this novel follows the main character Florence as she lives in New York City after escaping a small town that holds a ton of bad memories for her, until one day her father passes away and she has to return to that hometown. So when she's in her hometown with her family and at her family's funeral parlor, she discovers and sees a ghost that followed her from New York. This book is a little spooky, but definitely in a good and fun, wholesome way, and I had a good, fun time reading this book as well. Another book that I picked up but I haven't read yet is None Shall Sleep. I haven't heard too many people talk about this book, but essentially this book is like if Criminal Minds and the Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes had a baby together and this was the outcome. Which I love Criminal Minds and I also love the Natural series, so I was super excited to pick up this book. None Shall Sleep is set in the 80s and takes place in Quantico, Virginia. It follows two teenagers that survived a horrific crime against them, and as they are recruited by the FBI to interview convicted juvenile killers and also provide some insight and advice on cold cases. However, one day the two teens are called into an active case with a serial killer that exclusively hunts teenagers. Another book that I picked up was The Guest by Emma Clyde. This is another author that I've really wanted to get into. She also wrote The Girls, which I haven't read yet. But I picked up The Guest because the plot sounded super interesting, intriguing to me. Essentially, I think it's about a unlikable character that overstays her welcome at a house. And then everything derails from there. This book feels like it's going to be a horrific car accident, but you just can't look away. Another book that I picked up is Betting on You by Lynn Painter. I've also read her 2 other books, Better Than the Movies and The Do-Over. Better Than the Movies was definitely a 5-star read for me, so I knew when this novel came out that I definitely wanted to pick it up and read it. The beginning of Betting on You is so When Harry Met Sally coded. It follows the main character Bailey as her parents are going through a divorce, and she has to move to Omaha to live with her mom. And on her plane ride journey from Alaska to Omaha, she meets a guy who is her exact opposite and she finds extremely annoying. After moving to Omaha and living there for a couple of years, her and her best friend get a new job, and to her surprise, on her first day there, she finds the guy from the plane, Charlie, who is now her new coworker. I really liked Betting on You. I thought it was a very cute YA romance, and I liked Charlie and Bailey's relationship together. My only critique of this novel is that there were just too many tropes and plots happening all at once. You had When Harry Met Sally because Charlie said that men and women can't be friends. You have enemies to lovers, workplace romance, family drama, friend drama, bets. So there's just a lot of different things and elements all happening at once, and it made this book feel a little bit mushy. I wish that 1 or 2 of these plots or tropes were selected and were dived in deeper on. But overall, I really like this book and I thought it was super fun and cute to read. Another book that I picked up was Belladonna by Adeline Grace. Belladonna is, I believe, a YA gothic fantasy that follows the main character Signa. And Signa is essentially just surrounded by death. All of her guardians and parental figures have mysteriously died. So when the matriarch of the family that she's currently staying with mysteriously passes away, she strikes an alliance with death itself in order to solve that mystery. This novel feels like it's going to be the perfect combination of both gothic elements and romance, which I really love. Speaking of gothic fantasy novels, I also picked up One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig, which is her debut novel. One Dark Window follows the main character Elspeth as she's trying to stay safe and undetected in a kingdom that is locked in by a mysterious mist and is also infected with dark magic. And the secret that she needs to keep safe is that she is actually infected with the dark magic and has what she calls a nightmare living inside her head. This book has a really unique magic system that I really enjoyed reading about. It also has an adventurous quest as the overarching plotline of the whole story. And of course, because it's a romantasy, there is a romance plot to it as well that I really enjoy. But if you're in the mood for a fantasy novel that has magical elements and also is set in a lush and gothic world, then you definitely need to pick up this book. And because I loved One Dark Window so much, I had to pick up the next novel, Tutus, which is the continuation of the storyline from One Dark Window. I'm not going to get into too much of the details because I don't want to spoil anything, but this was such a great follow-up to the first book, and I loved it so much more. And I'm such in a fantasy mood, so I picked up Powerless by Lauren Roberts, which is her debut novel. I feel like this book is so popular on YouTube and TikTok in particular, and everyone rants and raves about this book, so I wanted to read it to see what all the hype was about. Powerless follows the main character Peyton as she lives in a kingdom that have elites, which basically are people who have these magical abilities and powers, and then on the other hand there are ordinaries, and essentially they are people who have no power and are banished by the kingdom. And Peyton falls within the ordinary camp, and she is trying to keep that secret to herself so she doesn't get banished and killed from the kingdom. This novel is definitely similar to The Hunger Games, as Peyton is selected to participate in a competition called the Trials, where herself and a bunch of different elites all compete in these mini trials in order to win a prize at the end. So it has a deadly trial game. Also, all the contestants of the trials go through interviews that are broadcasted to the kingdom. I liked Powerless, but to be honest, I wasn't very invested in the characters or storyline until about the halfway point of the book. However, I will say the last 50 pages of this book were super interesting and very intriguing and very fast-paced, and I think it's going to set up the next book in the series, Reckless, in a completely different way, but I mean that in a good way. So I'm super excited to continue on with the series and see where Lauren Roberts takes it. Another YA fantasy book and series that I picked up was Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. Legendborn follows the main character Bree, and it starts with the death of her mother, who she was very close with. And essentially, as a result of her mother's death, Bree joins a early college program at the UNC campus in North Carolina. Literally on her first night there, she witnesses and sees a magical attack. And from there, she discovers a secret society that she thinks is involved with her mother's death. Legendborn was such a great novel. It had such a unique concept as it was centered around King Arthur and the Round Table. And also this book just had so much to say about grief and power and legacies and also self-discovery. And because I loved Legendborn so much, I picked up Bloodmark, which I haven't read yet, but this is a continuation in the second book in the series. But I'm super excited to read Bloodmark. I predict that I'm gonna love this even more than Legendborn. If you couldn't already tell, I'm definitely in a fantasy mood and definitely a YA fantasy mood, so I picked up the Cruprins or the Folk of the Air trilogy. Cruprins is a YA fantasy series by Holly Black, and this is another series that everyone has read except me. But this series and this book are very popular on YouTube and TikTok. I've seen this everywhere. I don't know too many details about this book, but I'm pretty sure there is a strong political plot line. But I'm super excited to get into this series and see what all the hype is about. Another super popular fantasy series is Acatar, or A Court of Thorn and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This is another book that I feel like everyone has read except me and is so popular on YouTube and TikTok. I see so many videos and content about this series all the time, every day. Like I said, I've never read this series and I've never read a book by Sarah J. Maas before, but I'm excited to get into it and see what all the hype is about and also see what I think about the series itself. But I'm pretty sure this book is a YA fantasy, but I don't think any of the other books in the series are YA fantasy, just this one. Also, I think this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but I also think none of the other books in the series are anything remotely like that. I honestly have heard so many spoilers about this book, either prompted or unprompted by others, so I don't think anything that I read about will be a surprise to me, but it's not going to deter me from reading this book and the series. And the last two books in the haul were completely unnecessary purchases. The first one being Caral, the collector's edition by Stephanie Garber. Now you may be asking, why is this an unnecessary purchase? Well, it's unnecessary because I already own Caral and the rest of the series in its original covers. So did I really need a collector's edition? No, but I really wanted it. This book comes with its own hard case that has a really cool lock and key design to it, and on the back as well. And the book itself slides out of the hard case, and the book essentially looks like a ticket that will grant you access into the game of Caral. This book also has some bonus content to it at the end. I believe it has a chapter in Julian's point of view, and it also contains some of Stephanie Garber's notes as she was writing Caral. The last book in this very collective haul, and also a unnecessary purchase, A Curse for True Love, also by Stephanie Garber. This book is part of the Once Upon a Broken Heart series that I already own all the books in the UK cover editions because I prefer those covers so much more than the US covers. But the sole reason why I brought this book, and in particular the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition of this book, is what the cover looks like on the inside once you take the dust jacket off. Hardback cover itself has gold foiling, and it says The Ballad of the Archer and the Fox, which is the fictional tale that the series is loosely based on. And I just thought that was so cute, and I absolutely needed to have it for my personal collection. But that concludes my very collective book haul. Like I mentioned before, all of these books span over a 3-month timeline. Some of them were gifts, some of them I bought with my own money. But of the books in this haul that I haven't read yet, I'm super excited to get into them. But let me know of any of the books that I just talked about. If you love any of them and your thoughts about them, I would love, love, love to hear about it. And if you made it to this point, thank you so much for watching and watching my first video.